Are even sent to those who are simply accused or suspected of shoplifting or wrongfully accused where there are no grounds for a criminal case. In other states, these firms are permitted to demand a penalty in addition to actual damages. However, Nebraska statute only allows for actual damages, in other words, the value of the stolen item. Yet these firms send to Nebraskans the same letter they would send to accused shoplifters in other states. The letters we've seen have demanded hundreds of dollars in penalty even when the item was recovered and no damages were sustained. While this statute technically creates a cause of action, our research has found no instance where this cause of action has actually been filed in court here in Nebraska, let alone successfully won on its merits. It is just these cryptic and misleading demand letters that come from almost exclusively out-of-state collection firms. If anyone would like, I have several of these copies here, and you can see, for example, what the types of letters I'm referencing. It is important to note that retailers already have 3 other avenues for recouping their actual losses: criminally through restitution, a common law civil claim, or a statutory claim through 25-1801. We actually amended 25-1801 last year to make it even more clear that actual damages sustained by a retailer can be sought under that statute, making it a perfect time to revisit this statute that would be repealed under this bill. We could repeal this section outright, as I am proposing here in LB 71, and there would still be 3 other potential ways for a retailer to recover damages if an item is stolen or damaged in a shoplifting case. I would want to thank the UNL Law Civil Clinic for their assistance in this past interim and for their many years of research and working with clients on this issue. After a very informative hearing, where the committee heard from a number of attorneys and with clients who have received these letters, the Judiciary Committee voted LB 71 out unanimously on an 8-0 vote. With that, I would encourage you to your green vote to advance LB 71 to select file. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Debate is now open. LB 71, Senator Slama.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today in support of this bill. It was noted in our committee hearing that in the few decades that this statute has been in place, it's never actually been used for the purpose for which it was intended. There was never actually any civil actions filed to cover damages. The way the statute is being used is just to fleece suspected shoplifters. It's, again, a great point that Senator Hansen pointed out, that these retailers still have 3 other ways to recover damages. And so I rise today in support of this repeal.
Thanks, Senator Slama. Is there any further discussion on LB 71? Senator Hilgers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was wondering if Senator Hansen would yield to a question or 2.
Senator Hansen, would you yield, please?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Just briefly, I noticed on the committee statement there were a couple of opponents that appeared at the hearing. Could you just briefly describe the nature of their opposition, please?
I would say fundamentally they want these letters to continue.
Did they provide a substantive reason as to why they would like them to continue?
Not from my perspective. They were asked if the letters ever actually led to court cases, and they could provide no examples.
From your perspective, in the sense that you didn't agree with them, I'm just curious if they provided some justification. Not asking whether you agree with the justification, but whether or not there was a justification for continuing the statute.
I don't want to be unkind to the testifiers, but I would say their opposition was kind of confusing and contradictory, and I would not be a good person to summarize their opposition.
Okay, thank you, Senator Hansen. Senator Slama, yield to a question, please.
Senator Slama, would you yield, please?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Senator Slama. Just the same question I asked to Senator Hansen. If you could describe or characterize the nature of the opposition.
Yes, I mean, the nature of the opposition was that they do want to continue sending these letters. Of the 2 people that provided, the 2 folks that provided opposition testimony, none could point to an occasion in which this statute has been used as intended. There's never been, under the statute, a civil action filed. So they really couldn't provide, in my mind, a good reason for why the statute should remain in place.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Hilgers. Senator Lathrop.
Thank you, Mr. President and colleagues. What this bill is doing is repealing, there's some stuff in there about small claims court, but basically the substance of it is the repeal of 25-21, 194. And that was a bill passed in 1987 by this legislature. And the idea behind the bill when it passed was that instead of having all these people get prosecuted for shoplifting, we'd give a cause of action to the retailer, and the retailer could go in and sue them for the damages. And the idea was we'd have fewer people with shoplifting convictions, and these lawyers would take care of it. You know, Walmart or whoever it is, these retailers would just have the lawyers kind of take care of it and sue these people instead of for their damages, instead of having people get convictions for shoplifting. What has transpired since 1987 is we're not seeing people not get convicted for shoplifting. And normally you're going to see me stand up and defend lawyers. Generally speaking, not all of them, but some of them. And today I'm going to call them out, the bad ones. Okay? Because what's happening now is these retailers are providing a list of names of shoplifters. By the way, they're being prosecuted. And they send it to some guy in New York City who's got a law degree, and he's writing form letters. And everybody who shoplifts, regardless of what they shoplift, the value of what they shoplift, whether it was damaged or not, whether it was returned to inventory or not, gets a letter. And it is a cottage industry by an unscrupulous lawyer in New York City who's citing this statute. And the difficulty is that the letters suggest that if you pay, you won't get prosecuted for shoplifting. So they're misleading, and they're citing this section of the statute so that people see it coming from a lawyer in New York City. There's a reference to the statute, and they go, oh God, now I got to pay this guy $200, $300, $400, $500, and they pay the money, and then find out they're still getting prosecuted. So what its intended purpose was to turn shoplifting into a civil matter. It hasn't. People are still being prosecuted, and the effect has been to provide some lawyer in New York City with a bunch of revenue. Now, is some of that revenue being split or coming back to the retailer? Maybe so, and they probably like that. In fact, one of the justifications given was it helps offset our losses. Well, that's not the purpose of the bill. It should be actual damages. And by the way, they don't need a lawyer to write that letter in the first place. Like, if Walgreens has somebody steal from them and they want $200, they can write the letter themselves. But when they inject a lawyer into this process, an unscrupulous one who's going to use this statute from New York City, then they add more money to it. And so what we're doing is fleecing a bunch of people that don't know better. They suggest that they're going to get sued if they don't, and here's what happens. They don't sue anybody. They're just sending these letters out. And then fleecing people for $200, $300, $400, $500, and they're still getting prosecuted. So it might have had a good intention when it was passed by this legislature. It happened to have been a Brad Ashford bill. I'm sure Brad, who was a retailer, thought it would work, but it hasn't been. And it's just turned into some guy with a law degree in New York City writing these letters. And if you don't pay him, guess what? He doesn't do anything. But people don't know that because it's coming from a lawyer. So that's why we need to get rid of it, because it's just being used as a tool to fleece people who probably have a bunch of other problems on their plate, including a criminal prosecution for shoplifting. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Lathrop. Before proceeding, Senator Coltman would like to recognize some guests today. We have with us the presidents and board members of Western Community College, Mid-Plains Community College, Central Community College, Northeast Community College, and Southeast Community College, all with us in the North Balcony. If those presidents and board members could please rise, I'd like to welcome you to the Nebraska Legislature. Continuing discussion, Senator Pansy Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just standing because Senator Hilger said he was wondering what was said during the hearing, and one of the opponents said that actually said he agrees that there has been abuse, and another one said, well, this is just a simple, clean, efficient way to handle shoplifting. But the University of Nebraska law professor, Professor Sullivan came and said what's happening is that they're specifically going after poor people who don't have lawyers, who don't understand, as Senator Lathrop said, don't understand the whole procedure. And so this is just increasing the whole vicious cycle of people going into debt and not understanding what their rights are in this case. And they threatened if you don't pay $200 to $500 with template letters and threaten litigation. So, if there's actual shoplifting, they are able to go after these people with a lawsuit. And we're not trying to stop a Nebraska lawsuit or Nebraska lawyers to appropriately affect the compensation for anything. But they are actually going after people who, we have testimony that they are actually going after people who shoplift and it is returned to the shelf and they're still getting that letter. That's not the Nebraska way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Pansy Brooks. Is there any further discussion on LB 71? I see none. Senator Mann-Hansen recognized to close the advance of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank the Judiciary Committee members who heard this bill and who spoke on it, especially those who spoke on the floor. As I said in my opening, this eliminates one specific section of law that deals with civil claims following a shoplifting request. In practice, retailers will still have many opportunities to recover the actual value of the item. I will say, just kind of as former practice in our courts, our county attorneys are very good about asking for restitution in shoplifting cases, and in many instances that is just kind of par for the course. If an item is damaged or stolen or some other way is not, the retailer needs to recoup the value, it'll come through the restitution case. This just eliminates one section of statute that provided a civil action 30 years ago that has never actually been used, and in my mind is just kind of cluttering and confusing our law on civil recovery. With that, I thank everybody who's spoken in support of the bill and would ask the body to advance LB 71.
Thank you, Senator Hansen. Members, you heard the debate on LB 71. The question for the body is the advance of the bill to ENR initial. Those in favor vote aye. Those opposed vote nay. Have you all voted here too? Record, please.
40 yeas, no nays on the motion to advance.
LB 71 advances. Proceeding now